Vijanamalava Suranandara Brajana Ranjana Surana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Navishwa, Tarmaha, Swabra, Jigachaya, Pastor Sarasisi, Mad AC, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki jai. Namaskar, Haridas Thakur ki jai. Premsagaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhaktivedanta ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopidar Shama Kunda Radha Koti Giri Govardhan ki jai. Sri Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadha Dham ki jai. Ganga Jamuna Tulasi Bhakti Devi ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samavetna Bhakti ki jai. Go Premanandi. All glories to the seven devotees. All glories to the seven devotees. All glories to the seven devotees. All glories to Sri Guru Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Buddhade Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvishesha Shuddhavari Pashtacharya Shatadane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhakti Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Read from Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 10 Chapter 50 Verse 7. Anishyami balam hitad Bhuvi bharam samahitam Magadena samanitam Vasyanam sarva bhubujam. Anasyami, I will kill Balam, army, certainly, etat, this, bhuvi, upon the earth, bharam, burden, samahitam, collected, Magadhena, by the king of Magadha, samanitam, brought together, vasyanam, subservient, sarva, all, bubujam, of the kings. The Supreme Lord thought, since it is such a burden on the earth, I will destroy Jarasanda's army consisting of Akshakunis, of foot soldiers, horses, chariots, and elephants, which the king of Magadha has assembled from all subservient kings and brought together here. But Jarasandha himself should not be killed, since in the future he will certainly assemble another army. Purport. After due consideration, Lord Krishna decided that since he had descended to the earth to destroy the demons, and since Jarasandha was so enthusiastic to bring all the demons to the Lord's front door, it was definitely more efficient to keep Jarasandha alive and busy. This is the purpose of my present incarnation, to relieve the earth of its burden, protect the pious, and kill the impious. I also assume other bodies to protect religion and to end irreligion whenever it flourishes in the course of time. Sukadeva Goswami continued, as Lord Govinda was thinking in this way, 2 chariots, as effulgent as the sun, suddenly descended from the sky. They were complete, the drivers and equipment. Purport, Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti agree that the chariots came down from the Lord's own abode, Vaikuntha Loka, the kingdom of God. The faithful devotees of the Lord derive tremendous pleasure by observing the Lord's incomparable technology. The Lord's eternal divine weapons also appeared before him spontaneously. Seeing these, Sri Krishna, Lord of the senses, addressed Lord Shankarshan. The Supreme Lord said, my respected elder brother, see this danger which besets your dependents, the Yadus, and see, dear master, how your personal chariot and favorite weapons have come before you. The purpose for which we have been taken birth, my Lord, is to secure the welfare of our devotees. Please now remove from the earth the burden of these 23 armies. After Lord Krishna had thus invited his brother, the 2 Dasarhas, Krishna and Balaram, wearing armor and displaying their resplendent weapons, drove out of the city in their chariots. Only a very small contingent of soldiers accompanied them. As Lord Krishna came out of the city with Dwaraka at the reins of his chariot, he blew his conch shell, and the enemy soldiers' hearts began to tremble with fear. So here we have the thoughts of Krishna and then the actions of Krishna in relation to the attack of Jarasandha. So here we find the mention of the burden of the earth, bhara, which literally means a weight. A weight in this sense means an inconvenience. You have to carry something. It's a big weight. So the earth, Mother Earth, she has to carry this weight, the burden of adharma. And the Lord wants to relieve the earth of this burden. We see in the first canto of Bhagavatam how Parikshit inspected his kingdom, and then he saw a bull and a cow, and they were being attacked by a Sudra dressed as a king, as personification of Kali. And the earth was weeping, and the bull, of course, was standing only on one leg. So that was just, of course, Parikshit saw this after everything had finished, the Kurukshetra war, etc., and all the demons had been destroyed, but Kali Yuga was about to begin. So again, the earth, which is represented by the cow, was suffering and crying because the bull was being attacked. Adharma, in the form of personification of Kali, was attacking the bull of Dharma. Consequently, the cow was suffering. So, of course, the cow and the bull are partners. So in the same way, the earth and Dharma are partners. They go together. And if Dharma flourishes, the earth flourishes. If Dharma suffers, the earth suffers. So this is a very important concept and also very relevant in the modern world because everyone is concerned about environment and earth and whatever, pollution and so many problems we have with contamination of the earth. So here the Vedic explanation is it's directly related to Dharma. The less Dharma you have, then the less cooperative earth is. And it doesn't give water, doesn't give minerals, doesn't give proper air, whatever. Nothing comes properly. And consequently, the human population suffers. So in other words, there's a direct correspondence between Dharma and how the earth gives its produce, its food, etc. So it's not just stop the factories or this, that, or whatever. It's actually a matter of Dharma. But we can also see that if the people's hearts are not pure, then of course they will do all sorts of activities to exploit the earth, and this is a reflection of their adharmic attitude. They want to enjoy for themselves and get maximum profit, etc. So that is the quite prominent in Kali Yuga. But even in Dwapara Yuga, at the end of Dwapara Yuga, this was also prominent in the form of Kamsa, and after his death, Jarasandha, and all the other kings which are mentioned here, the Sarva, Bhujam, all the other kings who were subservient to Jarasandha. There was a whole group of persons who were supporting Jarasandha, and consequently they were opposed to the Yadus and to Krishna and to Dharma. So we have a conflict between Dharma and Adharma here. So Kamsa was the first representative of Adharma, and then after he was killed by Krishna, then we have Jarasandha as the representative of Adharma. How does this create a burden? We see here that Krishna mentions this in this verse, and then in the next verse also, I've come to relieve the earth of its burden, etc. Twofold. There's two problems. Now, Dharma itself, we know, is conventional Dharma, is different from Bhakti. But Dharma and Bhakti go together. We see there's 4 legs of Dharma. It doesn't have Bhakti in there anywhere. It's only sense control and mercy to other living entities and truthfulness, etc., cleanliness, like this. But where's Bhakti? It's not mentioned there. So, nevertheless, if these principles are not maintained, the earth suffers. But what's the relationship between Dharma and Bhakti? Is there a relationship at all? So the Lord comes to restore Dharma, etc. But the Acharyas usually say that this also means that the Dharma here also refers to Parodharma, the supreme Dharma, which is Bhakti. So in other words, the Lord has 2 purposes: to implement the basic rules like nonviolence, and, cleanliness, sense control, truthfulness, and etc., Dharma, plus the teachings of Bhakti. And we see these represented in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna teaches about varna, asrama, and karma yoga. That's the Dharma aspect. And he also teaches about Bhakti. without the bhakti, then the whole Bhagavad Gita becomes meaningless. So both things are there. So the Dharma ultimately refers to varnashram system implemented by qualified kings who are descendants of a Manu. So in other words, these are very special people. We can't just establish a varnashram system. You need a king. And the king we can't just appoint a king and make a king or whatever. They come from a certain line of persons who are considered vibhutis of the Lord, empowered by the Lord. So elsewhere it's described that the Manus are vibhutis of the Lord, and their descendants also are vibhutis of the Lord. They're empowered, especially by the Lord, to establish varnashram, dharma, and bhakti. And they only the Manus only come once every 71 yuga cycles. So we have 14 Manus in one day of Brahma, and each Manu establishes a line of kings after he rules for thousands of years. Then he puts his sons on the throne, they have grandchildren, etc. And this goes on for 71 yuga cycles. And they keep dharma in place. Sometimes there are disturbances. And we see that King Vena suddenly popped up in the middle of the Swayambhuva Manu's line, and they had to kill him. The Brahmanas cursed him, etc. And then Prithu, incarnation of the Lord, appeared, and he became the king. So within the Manu's dynasty, we even have a Shaktivash avatar, Prithu Maharaj, appearing to restore dharma, etc., and continue the line. So we are presently in the 7th Manvantara period, and the Manu is Vaivasata Manu. And he establishes a line, and it goes on. And that line is actually traced, we see in the 9th canto of the Bhagavatam, it traces all the way up to Krishna. And the Yadus, etc. Then it peters out. And then it describes how the line actually disappears because of unqualified persons, etc. And the last descendant of Manu disappears. So there is no varnashram in Kali Yuga. He's hiding in the Himalayas someplace. And he won't manifest himself until the next Satya Yuga. So in other words, we really can't establish the proper varnashram system with a king empowered by Supreme Lord, a vibhuti of the Lord, until the next Satya Yuga. So in that sense, no dharma in Kali Yuga. That's hopeless. So that is why Krishna advises in Bhagavad Gita, just do bhakti yoga. We can't establish it. We have no hope for a varnashram at all in Kali Yuga because the king isn't there anymore. He'll appear next Satya Yuga. So, but we're not lost because we have bhakti yoga and we have Nam Sankirtan and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, the Lord gives us a solution when there are problems like this. In this case, the line was still intact, and Krishna supported the Pandavas and Yudhisthira as the rightful persons to rule. The demons didn't, adharmic people. And we find later on that obviously Krishna and his side, Pandavas, they won, and they were established as the kings. And then the line went on with Parikshit. And after that, it began to decline. So, at least when Krishna was alive, then the adharma was suppressed, and dharma was established again, reestablished by Krishna. So, that dharma has two parts to it. That is the institution of varnashram, and parodharma, the teachings of bhakti. And very conveniently, of course, the Lord himself came and established both of them, the dharma aspect by supporting the Pandavas, and then himself teaching the highest dharma in the form of Bhagavad Gita and whatever. So both things were accomplished. So the earth has a burden because of lack of dharma, etc. Yeah. But when we analyze what is the lack of dharma, then our acharyas say that dharma itself is also useless without bhakti. The two have to go together. Huh? If we have no bhakti at all and we have a varnashram system, it's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls asurak varnashram. It looks like varnashram, but the whole purpose is to enjoy artha, dharma, kama. Basically, that's it. Huh? Or even moksha, because even the demons we see, they also believe in moksha in one sense, and but they don't believe in Supreme Lord. So, without the bhakti aspect, dharma itself is rather useless. And for that reason, in the Bhagavatam we'll find that dharma in itself and such things are not really praised so much. Sometimes they are, as in Bhagavad Gita, karma yoga is praised, but ultimately, no, secondary, as Lord Chaitanya says, all secondary, no varnashram, like that, and he rejects it in favor of bhakti. So there's a great distinction of our acharyas between dharma and form of varnashram and bhakti yoga. They're quite different. The goals are, because the goals are different. But even in that varnashram, which is rejected by our acharyas, there must be bhakti. But we don't call it, if it's awesome bhakti, why don't we call varnashram bhakti? Why? Because the goal is different, and the amount of bhakti is much less. It's not the major activity of the persons involved. They're principally doing karma yoga. Bhakti is one portion of that only. It's its anga. It's not the angi. So the main element is called the angi, and the subsidiary elements are called the angas. Like the body has angas. So bhakti is just one of the many things you do. And primarily we're interested in artha, dharma, kama, and then ultimately moksha, not prema. So therefore bhakti serves, and there's no disrespect for the Lord there in that system, but at the same time it's not the main goal to please Krishna, etc. So even that system, which has got worship of the Lord or worship of Vishnu in it, is ultimately rejected because the goal is different. So, but it has a function at the same time. Why does Krishna praise karma yoga in the Bhagavad Gita? At least in the 3rd chapter. Because for people in general, they have to follow rules and regulations, and if they don't have faith in the Lord and they can't take to bhakti, at least they have to follow rules and regulations. And by doing so, they can be happy, materially speaking. They can get their artha and their kama by following dharma. So therefore, for people in general, yes, don't discourage them. Let them enjoy, but follow the rules of dharma. So for that particular group of people, fine. It's not the ultimate goal, but it's better than nothing. So in that sense, it's praise for the majority of people. But at the same time, we know that's not the goal of life, ultimately. For the intelligent person, they understand that. We're not the body, etc. We have to get out of the material body and go for moksha or go for prema. Those two things. So, of course, the devotees ultimately also reject moksha, and they go only for prema. So, for the majority of people, yes, we have to encourage dharma. So, what about the devotees? So, generally, if there is a system of varnashram intact, then the devotees also follow that system. So we see Yadus follow dharma. Pandavas follow dharma. They're following those rules also. But their main interest is Krishna. Uddhava is a member of the Yadus. What does he do? He's primarily a devotee of the Lord, but he's also following that system. Pandavas are Nityasiddha devotees of the Lord. They're also following that system, but in no way contrary to their devotion. So they do both systems. And that's how the Manus generally operate. They follow the system. They also do the bhakti. We see an example, of course, we have many examples, like Dhruva Maharaj, Priyavrata Maharaj, great devotees also. They were kings of the whole world. Then we find a case like Ambarish, very great devotee. He was so great of a devotee that he just said, oh, useless this kingdom. And he assigned all the duties to other people, and he refused to do the duties. He let the ministers do everything. And he was just worshiping the Lord. So we have various types of kings. Some will split the duties, some will be more on bhakti, etc. Some will be less on bhakti, and they get bewildered or whatever like that sometimes. So, but anyway, they follow both systems, the bhakti system and the karma yoga system with varnashram. And consequently, they set a good example for the people in general. But if there is a choice that you can't do both, you got to do one or the other, then the devotee chooses the bhakti yoga as the more important of the two. So he may sacrifice the karma yoga and varnashram for the bhakti. So in Kali Yuga, then we come to the position where the varnashram system is not much intact. Of course, since 5,000 years, it's got worse and worse. Even 500 years ago, maybe there was something left when Lord Chaitanya was alive. So they were still following, talk about Lord Chaitanya following his daily activities, his noon activities, his morning activities. So he was following sannyas according to the varnashram system in Puri. And when he was a grihastha in Navadvip, he was following, he was born in a Brahmin family, and he was following everything properly, etc. And all the other persons also, his followers, were following. But now, of course, 500 years later, more decline, less interest in following, or maybe incapacity to follow those rules because of the whole change in society. Therefore, at the same time, one may not be doing that, but at least one should do the bhakti aspect. So that's actually what Lord Chaitanya emphasized. Whatever you do the bhakti. Whether you're grihastha, sannyasi, in a varna, outside of varna, mlecha, sudra, whatever. That doesn't matter, but you do the bhakti at least. So the system of bhakti is applicable to everybody inside and outside varnashram system, and as the system declines, obviously, very difficult to do, but at least let us do the bhakti. So that is the position now in the world, and of course in the future even worse, less aspects of varnashram, and at least do the bhakti, worship the Supreme Lord. So that's why at the end of Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? Mamekam sharanam vraja. Just worship me, just surrender to me. Forget all other dharmas. They're all secondary. So whatever we can do, whatever is useful for us in that varnashram dharma, and karma yoga, we can do. But very difficult to implement the whole system. And we can only take a little element here and there. So this is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur calls the Gona Vidhi of Bhakti, the Varnashram rules, which we can apply to Bhakti, which are useful for us, because we live in the material world, in a society, with a family, and we have a material body. So we take those rules from the Varnashram system, which are not contradictory to Bhakti, and we also do those. So whatever rules for cleanliness and social interaction we have are generally borrowed from that Varnashram system. So we have rules for keeping the body clean, bathing, etc., dressing, rules for families, rules for social interaction, samskars. This is all borrowed from Varnashrams. We don't reject that. Whatever we can do, we do. But still, that is a very, we can say, small portion of the whole Varnashram system, which is based basically on Varnas, on clear distinction of, different groups of people and different professions, etc., which is completely destroyed now. So those who are so-called Brahmins, they should do Brahmin activities. 99% are not doing Brahmin activities now. What are they doing? They're bank managers and IT professionals instead. Yeah. Huh? So everything is completely gone. The basic varna aspect and the ashrama, and what ashrams are left? No more brahmachari ashram. Huh? Only grasta ashram, which they can't follow also. No vanaprastha, no sannyas for most, 99% of the population don't follow that either. So whole system is rather difficult to follow these days. But certain elements we can take, which are also favorable for devotional service. So the burden of the earth is there, and in Kali Yuga the burden is there because the Dharma isn't there. But at least if we have bhakti there, that part of the burden is no longer there. And that's the most important thing of all, actually. Without the bhakti, then even Dharma becomes useless. So if we have Dharma with no bhakti, that is also a burden on the earth because it becomes asura varnashram. So therefore, the essential element ultimately is bhakti, not just regular Dharma. So the Lord comes to relieve the earth of this burden of Dharma, etc. But ultimately, it is to encourage everyone to the process of bhakti. That's the main purpose of the Lord ultimately. So that's why He appears, to inspire people to become attracted to Krishna and to worship Krishna. That's the ultimate goal of Krishna, to give joy to His devotees.
Varnashram Dharma, we find the tag is given like he's a sannyasi, a brahmachari, grihastha. But even Kali Yuga, these things may not be, as you say, everything stops it away. The Brahmana is working in a software company.
Yeah.
But how is that it's possible that we in ISKCON we are trying to bring this, which is not actually not having, and they can be just called Vaishnava or a devotee.
Yeah. That's the ultimate principle, just Vaishnava. So whether one is a sannyasi or a grihastha, grihitaka, vanitaka, whatever, either you're in the house or in the forest, doesn't matter, you chant the holy name. So that's the main emphasis. If we put too much emphasis upon the ashram aspect or the varna aspect, of course varnas we don't put much emphasis, but the ashram aspect, then again it becomes an art also. So we cannot judge a person by his ashram in terms of devotion. That the greatest devotee may be a grihastha, maybe a brahmachari, not a sannyasi or whatever like that. So that's why Lord Chaitanya is all external. So, of course, even within the Gaudiya Sampradaya, the ashramas were not emphasized at all, so therefore for many years after Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, there were no sannyasis even. There was just Babajis who were not outside the varnashram system. And there was no varnashram system as such for that. And only Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati introduced a sannyas ashram again for preaching purposes. So it has a function, but we can't distinguish bhakti simply by ashram. And in the future, of course, especially in other countries, it has no meaning. Lord Chaitanya took sannyas because it had a meaning, and people would give respect to bhakti because of his sannyas status. And again, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur put the sannyas ashram because still people had respect for sannyas. What is a sannyasi in the Western world? Nobody knows what it is. So it doesn't really function for that purpose in the Western world. So in the future we don't know what's going to happen. So it may be obsolete in the future, for its original purpose at least.
Maharaj, you said when somebody follow the dharma, the bhakti is a part of the total activity, and it is a very small portion when you
within the varnashram.
Within a varnashram. But if we see the congregation devotees of the ISKCON, they are also doing that part only, that way the bhaktis are limited to chanting the 16 rounds and following 4 regulative minutes. And the other activities are exactly opposite what we are doing in the material world, everybody is doing. So how do we understand that?
Well, okay, to support the material body, then people work and whatever, so that's naturally there. So that's not what I mean by the prominent element of varnashram. Of course, work is there, but then there's so many other rules that you have to follow within the varnashram system, and primarily I said the goal is different. And yes, the goal is artha dharma kama, whereas in bhakti it's prema. So they do bhakti, but their goal is not, oh, we want prema, we want artha dharma, and we do bhakti also because scripture tells us we have to worship Vishnu or Krishna, so we do. But we actually want artha dharma kama. So at best it's a mixed bhakti is a secondary feature. And the prominence is given to that other goal. And of course they have to work and whatever. Now, even nowadays, people work and whatever. But if their primary goal ultimately is to have prema, then then that's called bhakti yoga rather than varnashram or whatever.
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he also took sannyas. Although he's a supreme lord, but he didn't reject the varnashram system.
What's that?
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, although he's a supreme lord, but he took sannyas.
Yeah.
But he didn't reject. Sannyas is a part of varnashram dharma, but he didn't reject the varnashram dharma. Although,
well, verbally, when he spoke to Ramananda Roy, when he spoke to the Madhvas, he more or less rejected it there.
but
Because when he met the Madhvas in Udupi, then they talked about the essence of the scriptures, and they said, follow varnashram. He said, no, secondary like this. He rejected that.
But we never see that he, that disobeyed the rules and regulations of the varnashram system.
What's that?
Means, he also followed the varnashram system.
Yeah, I'm
like
saying he did, yeah. Set an example, but it wasn't attached to it. And therefore, he did certain things which were not actually varnashram, like honoring Haridas Thakur, touching him when he shouldn't have touched him, burying him personally, going and begging food for him after and doing the Shraddha rites and all this. The sannyasi shouldn't do any of that, according to the varnashram system. And then when he was in Mathura, he ate at the house of, what's his name, who was technically Mlecha because he had been outcast by the Brahmins and whatever, but because he had been sprinkled by a Muslim with water or something like that. But he ate at his house when he shouldn't have. He should only eat at Brahmins' houses.
So that doesn't.
So he didn't really strictly follow that system.
So doesn't mean that means sometimes he is breaking, sometimes he is following.
Yeah.
Sometimes he is breaking the rules, sometimes he is following.
Yeah.
But you see in
But breaking because of devotion, because of devotees. That's why he breaks it, not because of lack of sense control or anything like that, but to show that the devotion is higher and the devotees are more important.
You see, when in Jagannath Puri pastimes, when he was in Jagannath Puri, there are many pastimes. Even sometimes Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself used to give instruction to his followers that I'm sannyasi, I should not do like this. So many rules he was saying.
Yeah.
So even why he is saying this kind of rules even to the devotees, his followers only, Namai those who are following him only. He say, I'm sannyasi, I should not be like that, I should, even he was sleeping on the floor himself.
Yeah.
It's like one kind of vairagya also, sleeping.
Well, because you get public criticism. You'll get criticized.
To avoid this only, the public criticism.
But where there is some contradiction with bhakti, then he may break it, as in the case of, eating at the house of a Vaishnava rather than a Brahmana or whatever like that.
Normally, sometimes I saw he used to take food from Smarta Brahmana also.
Yeah, Brahmana's houses. Or, of course, in Puri, it was always Jagannath Prasad anyway, usually. So.
Doing morning, we do a normal Gayatri. So they have elaborate
Sandhya
system,
Vandana.
Sandhya Vandana. Why we are not doing this? And you're calling yourself Brahmin.
Yeah. Well, that's because these are aspects of the varnashram system or the karma yoga system or dharma or whatever. And we can do them. It's not forbidden. But then again, many people do those things. Why do they do them? For punya, not for bhakti. Now, if you understand the reason for Sandhya Vandana ultimately should be worship of the Lord, then fine, you can do it. But then people would rather just chant Hare Krishna than spend an hour doing your Sanjavandana every morning. So, if there's a choice, then we'll just do the Harinam, which is more powerful. But if there's no objection, you could do it. And Lord Chaitanya probably did his Nitya Kriyas as a sannyasi, every morning, every noon time like this. He would bathe at the proper time and do everything like that. So you can follow as much as possible. But where there is a choice, as I say, that we follow the things which are emphasized in our sampradaya.
Sometimes, see, devotees advise that we should perform this in a Surya Namaskara or something like that. Surya
That's yoga.
Namaskara. Yeah, sometimes one devotee suggests to others that you can, as a devotee, you should do it.
Yeah.
But is it not a part of Varnashram Dharma, Surya Namaskara?
No, that's yoga. But if it's for health reasons, you're fine. If it's good for your digestive system or something, and you're sick, you can do it. Just like Dharma is personality, Bhakti is also personality. Should we approach Krishna directly or via Bhakti Devi? Well, the only Bhakti Devi in person is in one play. Like Kavi Karnapura, there's a Bhakti Devi there. Otherwise, I don't see Bhakti Devi in person. We see the Yoga Maya in person, like Purnamasi or someone like that. But and Hladini Shakti is Radha. But otherwise, we don't see Bhakti as such. Huh?
I think, there is a...
Of course, we approach Krishna through Radha.
That glory of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a, Bhakti is a person, it shows.
Okay, yeah. But this is as far as our acharyas go. Krishna thought, decided, and act. Likewise, living entities, thinking, feeling, willing before action. How are the two different lords always successful in his plans, human beings? So, well, obviously, Krishna is successful because he doesn't have to do anything. He can just do, and it's perfect anyway. But it was explained previously that he's like a human being. So then he will think very carefully before he does his activity or whatever. He doesn't have to, but he does that just like a human being does. So he is human-like in his activities. He acts like a human being would act, so one would think he's a human being. But actually, he doesn't have to do any of this, but he does this as part of his pastimes. And it also is pleasing to the devotees that he looks like and acts like a normal person in this world.
That word Avaduta, is he beyond Varnashram? Avaduta Brahmana, does it mean he's beyond?
Yeah, rather they're disinterested in following the rules and regulations. We talk about Avaduta, Nityananda was Avaduta, so he was completely, it's like a sannyasi without being a sannyasi, more or less.